Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. And as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Two topics I want to get into. The first one, it's going to surprise a lot of people. Colin Cowherd said that the San Francisco 49ers are his surprise team to land quarterback Aaron Rodgers if they traded away Brock Purdy. And then on the back half of the show, should the Niners sign wide receiver Stefon Diggs, who's a free agent, coming off an ACL tear last year, has been highly productive for a really long time, and NFL Insider thinks Diggs would be a great fit in Kyle Shanahan's offense. Let's begin here. A lot of people are going to be outraged by this. A lot of people are going to be confused by what Colin Cowherd had to say, but I'm going to talk you through it, and I'm going to try to break it down as best as I can. Colin Cowherd on FS1 today said his surprise team for Aaron Rodgers, the San Francisco 49ers, if the Niners don't want to pay Brock Purdy, instead they trade him and then sign Rodgers in NFL free agency. Here's where things stand with the four-time NFL MVP and NorCal native. According to reports, the Minnesota Vikings, who were poking around on the Rodgers front, showed some interest, are out. And they're going to go with J.J. McCarthy after he missed last year. That led to Sam Darnold having a career year, resurrected his career. Then he signed that big contract with the Seattle Seahawks. McCarthy had that knee injury that he suffered in the preseason, so he missed all of the 2024 campaign. But that organization is very high on the former first-round pick from last year's NFL draft, who led Michigan to the national championship. There are two other teams that we've been monitoring in the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants. Well, last Friday, Rodgers met for several hours with the Steelers in Pittsburgh at their facility. And the New York Giants believe they still have a shot, but I think they're on the outside looking in, as evidenced by them signing Jameis Winston. I don't think that you sign Jameis, still go after Aaron Rodgers. I think what the Giants' plan is and what they're hoping comes to fruition. Shedeur Sanders falls to them in the NFL draft. They take him, and then they have Jameis Winston as the bridge quarterback or the backup, and just a quarterback on that team who's very experienced. He's seen it all. He's a former number one pick, and he can help usher in the Shedeur Sanders era. Back to Rodgers to the Niners. Here's why it could make sense. And I already know the comment section is going crazy. If the 49ers really don't want to pay Brock Purdy, they could trade him for picks, sign Aaron Rodgers. He could be their short-term play at the quarterback position, and then San Francisco could draft a young quarterback to develop while still having Mac Jones on the roster. Don't forget that they like Tanner Mordecai as well, a UDFA who they picked up following the draft last year. A lot of people think that Aaron Rodgers is cooked. I'm here to tell you that he's not. The last 10 games that he played last year, he threw 18 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions with one of the worst offensive coaching staffs in the National Football League. And his numbers last year were not bad. He threw for nearly 3,900 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks at 41 years old, coming off a torn Achilles. Of course, he's not the player who he once was. He's getting older. He's not as mobile, but he still has a rocket for an arm, and in a good situation for an organization that has stability, structure, a good offensive staff with a good play caller, play designer, and complementary weapons, I still think that Rodgers can play at a very high level. It wasn't long ago that he won back-to-back MVPs in 2020 and in 2021. His final season in Green Bay, it was frustrating for that entire organization. 26 touchdowns, 12 picks. He gets traded to the Jets. 4 snaps into the season, he tears his Achilles. You see the QBR numbers. They haven't been good the last 2 full seasons that he's played. 41.3 in 2022 and 48.2 in 2024. Going back to Cowherd, here's what he said about Rodgers to the Niners. He said Aaron Rodgers is looking for a better culture, an offensive culture. I think Aaron Rodgers is sitting around for a couple of weeks waiting on the Niners' Brock Purdy. I don't think the 49ers are going to pay Brock Purdy $59 million per year. And that, according to his agent, is what he wants. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Aaron Rodgers needs to go on another darkness retreat. The Steelers, that team is fool's gold. Mike Tomlin can't figure out the offense. It's been 7 years. Forget about it. 59 quarterbacks played in the NFL last year. There will be opportunities. Could that opportunity be with the Niners? Rodgers, of course, has a lot of Bay Area ties. He grew up in Chico, California. He went to Butte Community College after he was under-recruited coming out of high school, balled out there. Jeff Tedford noticed what he was doing at the community college level. He goes to Cal, where he becomes one of the top quarterbacks in the country. And in the 2005 NFL Draft, he was there for the taking for the Niners. There was some buzz going into that draft that San Francisco, with the number 1 overall pick, could go with the hometown kid. Instead, they took Alex Smith out of Utah, and Rodgers slid all the way down the draft board to the Green Bay Packers, and it was controversial when the Packers took him at the time because they had Brett Favre on the roster. And then a couple of years ago, when the Niners were in need of a quarterback, they reached out to the Packers about the availability of Rodgers. They kicked the tires on him. And Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback who, I know a lot of people don't like the personality. You might disagree with his vaccine stance and his political stance. Don't let that blur you from the player that he's been, 4-time NFL MVP. He's won a Super Bowl, and the player that he still is. Look, he threw for 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 11 picks last year with Nathaniel Hackett as the offensive coordinator for a defense that after Robert Saleh got fired was terrible. An offensive line that wasn't very good for a dysfunctional organization. He is not cooked. Last 10 games, again, 18 passing touchdowns, 4 picks. Those numbers, by the way, better than Brock Purdy. Now, what I think will eventually happen is that the Niners will sign Purdy to a contract extension. Younger than Rodgers, not going to be cheaper than Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be more expensive. But everything that they've said leads you to believe that they think Purdy is their guy. Now, it could take a little while. They could be stiff and firm in these contract negotiations. Things could get a little bit hostile because after the Niners spent $330+ million in cash on the team last year, they went 6-11, and clearly they're cutting expenses and cutting cash this offseason. But if you don't have a quarterback in this league and you're in quarterback purgatory, you're in no man's land, and you have no chance to win. But if the Niners are not sure, and if they're getting a little bit wheezy about paying Brock Purdy $60 million per season, the short-term play could be Aaron Rodgers, who could still allow you to be a Super Bowl contender in 2025. So what say you? Would you trade Brock Purdy and sign Aaron Rodgers? That is today's poll question. Share your thoughts with me. Y for yes or N for no. If you want a Niners jersey to support the Niners, to rock during the upcoming season, get yours today at chatsports.com/49jersey. You use that link down below, takes it to Fanatics. Fanatics knows that Chase Sr., the 49ers report, and Chat Sports sent you. You can get some current players. You can get some GOATs like Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. Going to put that link down below in the show notes and attached to the pinned comment of today's show. It's chatsports.com/49jersey. All right, this is pretty interesting here. NFL insider Albert Breer thinks it would be a good idea for Stefon Diggs to go to the San Francisco 49ers in free agency for his next team. Here's what Breer had to say. The best place for him, it seems, would be with a contender where he wouldn't have to be the guy, which would mitigate potential issues with his desire for the football and also alleviate the frustration that losing can bring a guy with his sort of makeup. Is that place out there for him? San Francisco would make sense at the right price. Key words there, at the right price. The 49ers have let a lot of players go because the prices that they demanded wasn't to the Niners' liking. And San Francisco is clearly trying to be cost efficient given all of the moves that they've made this offseason have been cost-efficient moves. But the Niners wide receiver situation is a little bit murky after the Deebo Samuel trade, with Brandon Ayuk coming off that awful knee injury, with his future uncertain with this team. They have to make a decision, in my eyes, before April 1st because those roster bonuses kick in for 2025 and 2026. Now, Stefon Diggs is no longer in his prime. I think that's part of the reason why the Bills traded him from Buffalo to Houston last offseason to give C.J. Stroud another weapon. I think Houston looked at Diggs as a good complementary player alongside Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Nico Collins is a terrific young player. Tank Dell is as well, but he's had some really bad injuries to start his career. And there was also a lot of controversy around the latter portion of Diggs' tenure with Buffalo. He didn't seem to be happy. He wanted a fresh start. Buffalo did as well, and they made a lot of moves in getting rid of players last offseason, eating some dead money, and they improved their win total. They're the number 2 seed in the AFC. For Diggs last year, though, he did play pretty well before tearing that ACL. Only 8 games played. He was on pace to have more than 1,000 yards, 496 yards in those 8 games, 3 touchdowns, 2 drops, targeted 64 times, and he caught 47 of them. And he's had an incredible career up to this point with Minnesota, Buffalo, and then last year things were looking up in Houston. I know that he has some character concerns, but players within that Texans locker room absolutely love the guy. I'm just not sure if he's going to go back to the Texans because they made the trade for Christian Kirk. But that production has been steady, and that production could really help this Niners passing game. Yeah, he might not be the player who he once was in his prime, but in 2021, more than 100 catches, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. 2022, more than 100 catches, 1,400 plus yards, 11 touchdowns. 2023, more than 100 catches, nearly 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. And then last year, he was on pace for another 1,000-yard season. There's been some videos of him circulating on social media, looking pretty good in his recovery from that torn ACL, and he's still out there in free agency. I think the Niners' next steps at the wide receiver spot, it all depends on what they do with Brandon Ayuk. If he's on the team, you're going to have Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, Demarcus Robinson in your wide receiver room. And that's a pretty good wide receiver room. If you get rid of Ayuk, you probably need to draft a wide receiver or sign a wide receiver to bring in another player at that position to bulk up the depth and the overall talent of that room. Be sure to hit that subscribe button here. Nobody's doing what we're doing on the San Francisco 49ers Report, and we appreciate you for supporting us as always.